Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey here once again, and Black Panther, man, it's a huge success. I think it's gone to the cinemas and absolutely blown it away. I think it's exceeding, or far exceeding, everyone's expectations for the movies, not only in regards to its critical rating, but also in regards to the amount of money that movie is bringing in. It's ridiculous how much that Black Panther is bringing in. I think it's blasted both of the Star Wars movies, and I think it's, is it Avengers that's the only movie that's beating it? I'm not too sure. Let me know in the comments. It's one of them. It's ridiculous. And who thought it'd be competing with those movies? I, for one, didn't. And I don't think many people were as well. But one thing that Black Panther has that a lot of Marvel movies struggle to do well is a really, really strong and interesting antagonist or main villain. I'm going to call him an antagonist because that's what I think he is. And that's in the form of Eric Killmonger, who is obviously played by Michael B. Jordan. And he did a killer job. Pun intended? Possibly. But due to Black Panther, like the first Black Panther movie, having such a strong antagonist in the form of Killmonger, they've got a big issue on their hands. The sequel, it's got to top him, possibly, or it's at least got to compete with him. That doesn't necessarily have to top Killmonger and make it a much better antagonist or villain, but you have to compete with him. You can't produce like your ordinary Marvel villain, which is pretty weak in most ways, just to focus on the hero for the story. So in this video, we are actually going to be going over some potential options in regards to who the villain or antagonist for the Black Panther sequel could be. Some we've already met in this universe and some we have not met. So you could argue that the ones we have met already could be easier to do because we already met them in previous properties. But, you know, some of the new ones I'm going to mention that we haven't seen before are pretty damn cool. So, yeah. But of course, be sure to let me know in the comments section down below your opinions on the different options I go over, as well as if you have any other options that I do not mention in this video that you would like to possibly see be the villain for the Black Panther sequel. Just let me know in the comments section down below. And of course, if you're going to enjoy the video, be sure to drop a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Now, the first thing I do want to mention is that there actually have been some like wild theories that Killmonger could be back for the sequel. Which I don't necessarily want to see because I don't like it when, oh, like, there's our villain for the first movie, oh, okay, he's back for the sequel as the villain again. Like, it just doesn't work for me, unless he's just there, like, maybe recruiting people or something like that. But him as, like, the sole villain again, I wouldn't like. Now, for those wondering, he died, Pagey, he died in the movie. Yeah, but it's the comics, and also, it's a comic book movie, might I say, and also in the comics, Killmonger did die and come back to life. So, it's a possibility it happened in the comics, so they could do it in the movies as well. But if they were to do that, like bring Killmonger back, it might work if maybe like the villain brings him back. So the villain for the sequel brings back Killmonger as like one of his troops. I don't know if they'd want to do that though, but Michael B. Jordan was really good in the role, so I really wouldn't hate the idea of him coming back. It just could be a bit messy if they decide to go down that route. But the first villain we're going to be talking about, like that's, you know, not Killmonger, is actually Mbaku. So Mbaku, as most of us would know, is otherwise known as Man-Ape in the comics. However, that is like never really referenced or name-dropped in the movie, as the filmmakers decided to not really associate that with the character, and I'm pretty sure it was just due to like racial connotations. Now, Mbaku has a pretty interesting story arc over the course of the first Black Panther film. We see him starting out as a villain of sorts who is like fairly jealous of T'Challa and his position, which leads him to trying to take the throne of Wakanda for himself through combat, only to be defeated by our hero T'Challa. But as we progressed further into the movie, Mbaku turned out to be a pretty handy ally, not only helping in the end fight between Killmonger and his newly formed crew, but also due to the fact that he, along with the others of the Jabari tribe, actually saved T'Challa. The thing with Mbaku was that he was so close to power, and you would have to think that all those years of wanting the throne wouldn't just like go away like that. After all, as the opening part of the movie does say, the Jabari tribe had exiled itself from the rest of the nation many generations before. Now, the actor who plays Mbaku, who's called Winston Duke, put in a really, really good performance and was one of the standouts, which is pretty impressive seeing that it wasn't like he had the most screen time in comparison to other characters in the movie. I have seen some people calling him like the Korg of Black Panther, obviously Korg from Thor Ragnarok, which I sort of agree with. However, because he played the role of an antagonist sort of in the first Black Panther film, you would think the writers would push him in a more heroic role in the sequel. However, Mbaku will actually be in Infinity War Part 1 or Avengers Infinity War Part 1. So something could happen there that could push him back to a more villainous role. Maybe he isn't too happy with how T'Challa handles things in that movie. Who knows, but only a few months until Infinity War to find out about all of that and to see what happens with Mbaku in that movie. Our next option is actually Kraven the Hunter. Yes, he is a Spider-Man villain usually, but why not introduce this classic Spider-Man enemy in the Black Panther sequel first? Kraven the Hunter is otherwise known as Sergei Kravenov, His history is that he's a Russian hunter who is just a little obsessed with tracking the best game in the world, so why not make it that Black Panther is his first target in this hunt for the animal-themed heroes in the MCU. Whether or not this would be based in Wakanda is another question, but you would have to assume it is, but it could be a more even battle if it were set elsewhere, maybe in the US somewhere. The biggest issues around Kraven the Hunter being in the sequel is the fact that Sony Pictures holds the film rights to Kraven as part of their Spiderman catalogue, if you want to call it that. But you would think that if both of the studios could strike a deal that allows Peter Parker to be in the MCU, then the use of one of his classic foes should be easy enough to get sorted as well. A fun fact with Kraven the Hunter is that Ryan Coogler, the director of Black Panther, originally wanted Kraven the Hunter in the film, so maybe he could get his wish in this sequel. Our next option is actually Achibe, I think I'm pronouncing that right, or Achibe. I have really never known how to pronounce this guy's name, so excuse me if I completely mispronounce this guy's name. Now, Achibe being brought into the MCU could simultaneously bring with him another sort of spiritual aspect to the MCU known as Mephisto. This is because Achibe actually sold his soul to Mephisto, who was a demon, after a group of soldiers completely destroyed his farm and actually took his wife. His backstory allows for another type of, social commentary about the devastating effects that war can have. And you never know, due to T'Challa revealing Wakanda and its truths to the outside world, this could have consequences by those within the actual continent by inciting a war of sorts within its own regions, which could lead to Achibe actually going down this path. In the comics, Achibe is actually quite a scary and intimidating character. He infiltrates Wakanda's government and establishes himself in a pretty high-ranking position. From memory, he actually becomes king at one stage. Achibe also speaks to a hand puppet called Darky, so that's pretty unique and would be very interesting to see on screen. Our next option is actually Nakia. And yes, by Nakia, I do mean the Nakia from the first movie, T'Challa's ex-girlfriend. This might come off as a weird option, but in the comics, Nakia becomes obsessed with T'Challa, going so far as to plot to kill his girlfriend at the time. After she was banished by T'Challa, she was captured and tortured to death by none other than our good old mate Achibe, who we were just talking about. After this, the Altar of Resurrection brought her back to life, but she was not the same at all. She was really warped and she had all these different abilities and senses. Nakia took on the name of Malice after this and began targeting T'Challa and his friends. It's already established in the MCU that Nakia and T'Challa had a very up and down relationship of sorts, so transforming her into a villain could add another interesting mark and dynamic between the two. Also, giving a talented actress like Lupita Nyong'o a role like this would be using the most of her abilities rather than just making her your standard love interest, which a lot of people did feel her role was in this first Black Panther movie. I sort of disagree, she was that love interest, but I think she was a bit more complex than that. But I can see where people are coming from. And now we get onto the big boy. I'm pretty sure a lot of people would agree with me when I bring up this guy's name, and that is Namor. Now, this would probably have to be the most popular option of the choices I'll go over in this video. And you could see bringing Namor to the screen through another franchise as a setup to his own solo film as pretty similar to that of Black Panther's debut in Civil War. In regards to how he could be introduced, they could play it off that due to witnessing T'Challa bring Wakanda to the world's attention as sort of motivation to do the same with the Atlanteans. This could then lead into conflict with the Wakandans over technology. Starting Namor out as a villain or antagonist before evolving into an ally would create a very interesting relationship between both T'Challa and Namor. Plus, from there, they could jump into Illuminati territory with Namor, which, with the Fox deal coming into effect over the next few years, could open a lot of doors to potential storylines with the character. Now, the last option I want to talk about is one that people might not even expect, but I think it'd be a very interesting one to see play out on screen. And this is actually Walter Declan. Now, this might come off as a random option, but hear me out. It could work. Walter was actually the CEO of Damage Control, which we did see introduced in Spider-Man Homecoming. They could play him off almost in a role similar to Baron Zemo or Helmut Zemo like we saw in Civil War, where he isn't this big villain with superpowers, but just a guy in the background fanning the flames. There is a run in the comics in which T'Challa is put out of commission due to injuries due to an incident, and the story revolves around finding out who caused this. That story actually does involve Namor as well, and could be a way to bring him in another way, as well as put in some other MCU characters within the film as well. This story also has a very interesting story for T'Challa outside of the Black Panther suit, and also puts someone else inside of the Black Panther mantle, which you could argue was actually teased in the first film, and that person is Shuri, T'Challa's sister. In the first film, we didn't really get that good of a look at Wakanda's like ordinary residents, but this movie could tie into that with T'Challa's downfall and there being unrest in the nation due to confusion as to what is going on with the royals and the control of Wakanda. As I said, Walter wouldn't be this like over-the-top supervillain, he would just be fanning the flames in the background. But if Marvel wanted to, they could use him as a pawn in someone else's larger plan and introduce an even larger character as the one behind all of this. If they were going to do what happens in the comics, they would need that Fox deal to come through and activate as soon as possible. If it does, then the MCU could be doomed, shall we say. But thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like in the video, show support. Let me know in the comment section down below. Do you agree with my opinions? Do you want to add any more to some of the various options I mentioned? Or do you have another option completely that I did not mention in this video? Just let me know in the comment section down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. I'll catch you later, guys. Goodbye.